Okay, so about a week ago, I finished my playthrough of this, Tales of Destiny 2. Not to be confused with actual Tales of Destiny 2. So, in Japan, this game is known as Tales of Eternia, which is the name of the setting. And apparently in the English version, it's not even apparently, because very clearly they changed it, I've heard two different theories as to why. Theory number one is the first game to actually come out in America. I believe in a previous video I said Symphonia was the first one to come out in America. That is completely untrue. That's my bad. The first one to come out in the West was Tales of Destiny. So to make sure that people understood that, hey, you liked that game, this is part of the same series, they called it Tales of Destiny 2 out in the West, even though the plots of the two games don't overlap. And later on, there is an actual sequel to Tales of Destiny, which is Tales of Destiny 2, and I don't believe that did come to the West. The other reason I have heard that they changed the name from Tales of Eternia and Tales of Destiny 2 is because He-Man also takes place in Eternia, and there might have been some trademark infringement, which is just really funny. We had, like, the first thing, I'm like, oh, okay. Brand recognition, you want to make sure people know, hey, you liked our shit, keep buying our shit. That makes a lot of sense. But the thing of, oh fuck, He-Man has the same setting as us, we have to change it for legal reasons. It's really funny to me, and I can't think about He-Man, Masters of the Universe, without thinking of 50 Shades of Grey, which sounds really weird, but hear me out, because as you may or may not be aware, 50 Shades of Grey was based on a Twilight fanfiction, and that Twilight fanfiction was apparently titled Masters of the Universe, which is He-Man. I've never read it. I've never read 50 Shades. I've never read this fanfic, but it just brings me joy knowing just all those weird connections. And I felt I would be remiss if I did not talk about that when talking about Tales of Destiny 2, not to be confused with actual Tales of Destiny 2. And I'm not going to make that joke anymore in the video. I wanted to do it. Now going forward, I will just be referring to it as Tales of Eternia or Eternia. So Eternia, I would say after playing it, and of course I'll go into specifics a little later, is in my top 5 Tales games. That is kind of by default, because there's only been 5 that I finished, 6 that I've played, including Abyss, which I am currently now playing. And I'm only about a third of the way into Abyss, and as I've said before, and I'll definitely say when I'm done with it, it does not leave a great first impression. Everything I know about Abyss, though, is that, yeah, the first impression's dog shit, and by the end, it is a fucking diamond and one of the greatest stories ever told. Jury is out on that. We'll see that when we get to it. I just got to the part where Luke cut his hair. There's a lot of way to go. But when I look at my Tales games rankings at this time, I would say Symphonia is number 1. It's one of my favorite games ever. Berseria is number 2. Vesperia is number 3. I would have Eternia at 4. I would put Arise at 5. I'm very mixed on Arise. There's parts of it that make me think this game is a fucking masterpiece, and I love it. And there's other parts that make me go, really? This is what we're doing? Sure, dog? I guess. So, while Eternia is in my top 5 by default, even if Abyss ends up going, like, to the top of the rankings and knocking stuff down, Eternia will still end up being in the top 5. The only other Tales game that is on my list for this year is Xillia. I don't plan on playing it anytime soon, though, because after Abyss, I'm playing Lunar 2, I'm playing Scarlet Nexus, and then I'm going to finally play The Witcher 3. Well, if we get to Xillia, we will. It'll probably be later in the year, though. Next year, I do want to play all the Tales games. So the ones that I've already played, I'm probably not going to be replaying. It's been a while since I played Berseria and Vesperia. Maybe, but probably not. But, like, Eternia, since I just played it, I won't be playing it again next year. So it's nice to go and get a head start on that, too. It's kind of like my final note before, again, getting into the specifics. This game is not cheap. This is an old PS1 RPG that apparently no one bought. So I won't go into any specifics about like what I paid or what you can find it for. But we'll say this. As a game, like looking from the perspective of I spent X on a video game, don't think it was quite worth that price tag. However, when I look at it as a collector's item, something that's pretty rare, something that's really nice to have on the shelf, like my figures. I have a lot of figures. Gosh, I think I did the math on it the other day. I have like 70. You're like, how the fuck do I have that many? What the hell? I should probably sell some of these. Like, there's some that there's genuinely quite a few. Like, I'm completely fine with selling that. But regardless, I like collecting shit. I've been in a mood of collecting shit since I was like 6 years old and got into Pokemon. I used to collect Pokemon cards like crazy. Then for a while I started collecting Digimon cards, not as ardently, but I did it for a while. Then when I had a job and I was actually making really good money, that's when I was building up the bulk of my figure collection. And then I went on a kick where I was collecting video games for a little bit. It's just a part of my personality. I love having it. Like, look at all my posters. That's another thing I've collected. It's just like, I love getting posters and prints. When I look at Eternia from that lens, I feel like it was worth it. It's a very nice collector's item. And the fact that I genuinely did enjoy the game, because spoilers, I did, I'm glad that I have it. Oh, shit. I think I heard the dogs barking. I'll tell you what. I will go ahead and call a timeout. I will let the dogs inside, and then I will start going into the actual specifics of the game. Okay, I was gonna just say, like, alright, I took care of the dogs, now we're time to go, but I saw my hair, it's like, I've got a fucking pompadour going on! You're missing! I'm sorry, I scared the hell of it by doing a Kuwabara impression. Anyway, so, Eternia. So, starting with the presentation, as you can kind of see on the back of the game, with a little bit you can see of like the character models, it's not a 3D game, it's a sprite-based game. And if you've seen some of my previous videos where I talk about what I think about like 3D renders versus sprites, generally speaking, I prefer sprites. I love sprite work. And I think to me it's because with 3D, there's times where it can look really dated. There's times where it can look really cheap. But to me, sprites are timeless. If they're done well, they will always look good no matter when you're playing them. And to me, this game, I think the sprites look really nice. I think the actual animations in-game also look really nice. Like, I feel like it was very smooth. It was very pretty. I enjoyed that. The actual character designs, again, like when I look at Reed and Farah here on the cover, I think they look just fine. But then when I see Farah here on the back, I notice I'm like, your eyes look a little too big and maybe just a little far apart. And then like something about, where is Keel here? I can't quite see him. But one of the other main characters, like whenever you see him in like a video, I'm like, oh, there's something about his face that just looks kind of off. And then when I see a sprite, though, I'm like, no, that looks correct. And then maybe that's just kind of the disconnect. Like, I see how everyone looks in the sprites, and then actually seeing them animated, they don't look as right. But Reed tends to look fine in, like, the FMVs and shit. Merity does, too. So I don't super know what it is. But the actual sprites and animations themselves look great. The music, I think, is fine. There's times when, this sounds bad to say, I don't remember the music. I just finished fucking playing this game, and there were really no songs that really stuck out to me. Like the battle theme in Eternia, I remember liking quite a bit. The Celestia battle theme I thought was fine. I feel like there was a boss theme that really stuck out to me, but I don't even know whose it was. The song I probably know the most is the Von Eltia theme, which I can't do off the top of my head, but that's also because I didn't really like it that much. To me, it kind of has the same it's, how do I want to say this? It's the traversal theme, which means for me, it gets old. It's like the airship theme in Final Fantasy VI. Not a bad theme. You know, it's a song that, like, really makes you feel like you're going on an adventure, and it's great. And I feel like the Von Eltia theme does that too. But I associated it with, this is the music that plays where I'm trying to find where the fuck I'm trying to go. And if I get lost, and given my sense of direction, I am going to get lost. I kind of just associate it with, this is the music that plays when I'm getting lost and when I'm getting annoyed. So even if the music is good, I generally am not having a good time when listening to it, which makes me start to not care for the song, unfortunately. So I think the music is unmemorable. And I remember when I was talking about Ryza in one of my, like, podcast style videos. Oh, Ryza 1 specifically. I haven't played 2 or 3. I talked about how, while I can't remember a lot of the music off the top of my head, I remember liking it a lot while playing the game, so I'm gonna give it a high score for that. But I felt like even while playing the game, I frequently thought that the music to Eternia was fine, nothing really to write home about, unfortunately. Let me check. I think the only other thing to talk about with presentation is the voice acting, but I just want to be sure. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so the voice acting in this game, I can best describe as early 90s jank. I actually don't know when this came out. This maybe wasn't in the 90s. It might have been more like the 80s. Like late 80s, but I'm pretty sure. Actually, let me check. Is there a copyright on this? If I'm a betting man, I would say 96. No, I think this came out right before Symphonia. So maybe like 98, 99. I just want to see if I can find that. Is there a date? I don't see a date. Yeah, I don't see a date. I'm not going to keep looking. But late 90s, early 2000s jank. You probably know what I'm talking about. If you watched my Lunar review, which I fucking love that game. I can't wait to play Lunar 2. I said the same thing, where everything sounds kind of off, and, like, you know, every now and then there's a line where I'm like, oh, that's actually really well delivered, but something about the actual audio or the sound mixing, and sometimes someone's, like, really putting their all into a line, and then other times they're just kind of reading the words. In a modern game, that doesn't work. It just makes it sound cheap. Makes it sound like the voice direction, or either the voice direction, the voice actor, or a combination of the two, were just not giving it their all, and it makes it feel like it's a deficient product. But with these older games, there's something really charming about it. I can't lie, I've got that bias in me. I'm like, this is like watching an old dubbed anime. And I dig it. I really do. Do I wish it was genuinely better? Yes. But I can't lie. It does make me smile. So, presentation overall? You know, when I was doing my notes, I had written down a 3. I was like, a 3 out of 5 sounds about right. But talking about it, I feel like with just how much I like the sprites and how charming the voice acting is, I think I can go to a 3.5. I do wish I liked the music more. That would have really bumped up the score, but I think a 3.5 feels about fair. So now I'm going to move on to gameplay. Don't know why I was doing that. I guess that's the transition hand thing. Gameplay I can divide into 3 sections. Combat, dungeons, and traversal. So I guess we'll do it in that order. Combat's fun as fuck. I really like it. I will say, I didn't mind the encounter rate. It is a random encounter game and not like other Tales games. Not like literally every other Tales game I've played where you see enemies on the overworld. Overworld and in the dungeon, so you can choose who to fight. Which I vastly prefer, because I've never been one to enjoy random encounters, personally. Let me choose the pace of combat. But I don't think the encounter rate is that bad. There are some dungeons where it was a little annoying, but that was mostly because something like Belir Castle, where it's a really long dungeon, I just kind of wanted to get through it a little bit faster, or like Sylph's Cavern, I think that's what it was called, where it was just a really annoyingly designed dungeon, and like, this is starting to get a little grading game. I just want to figure out where the fuck I'm trying to go, and the fact that I'm like getting stopped for fights is not helping. But honestly, the encounter rate, I'd say, is pretty healthy throughout the game. I don't want to say this exactly. I feel like the way you get skills is pretty well distributed. I know what I'm trying to say, and I might have just made the point, but it just sounded a little weird coming out of my mouth. So let me say it like this. The early game of Tales of the Abyss, part of the reason it's so ass is I didn't feel like our characters were getting skills quickly enough. Like, I was playing Symphonia, I'm like, oh shit, I feel like I'm getting skills at a really nice rate. Then once you get to like kind of the mid game, it slows down quite a bit. But in the early game, I'm able to get a good amount of shit relatively quickly, so I can figure out what techs I like, how I want to play this character. Abyss doesn't do that. Abyss is like, here's like 2 or 3, get fucked. Eternia, to me, works a lot like Symphonia in that regard. I'm able to get shit pretty quickly. So like, I did alternate between Reed and Farah a lot in the early game, and then after a certain point, I was like, I'm just going to stick with Reed, because it's just more convenient that way. But I did think Farah was fun as fuck. But I felt like, yeah, like, I'm getting quite a bit of shit with him, I'm getting quite a bit of shit with her. I'm able to kind of learn things. I'm able to try to figure out which moves combo into what. This is really fun. The fact that when you're fighting, because you're on a 2D plane rather than like the 3D of some of the other games, your character can do shit and then they'll just like run back to the center. And it's weird. And I never really figured out what triggers that. Because sometimes it was like, oh, I got hit, I'm running back. Other times it was, I did a jumping attack, I'm running back. And other times it's like, no, you did like a couple combos, now you're running back. I never really figured it out. But normally it's like, all right, you can do quite a bit and then you reset. One thing I do hate about combat, though, and I have to say it, is I've noticed in other Tales games, both you and enemies, when a character gets knocked down, when they get back up, they take significantly less damage and almost no knockback. So it's like, yeah, if you get knocked down, you can get back up, but again, nothing's going to keep you down. But you kind of get a chance to reset yourself. That doesn't fucking happen in Eternia. When you can get hit by something and then just get wombo comboed until you're dead. Or just wombo comboed, knocked onto the ground. Okay, I'm getting up. And then you just get blasted until you die. That's ass. I'm not gonna lie. But for the most part, I did think combat was really fun. The way you get arts in this game, I don't know how unique it is, just because I don't know if there's other games in the series that do this. So what happens is the greater Kramels, which are like the summon spirits from some of the other games, are bosses. And then when you fight them, you put them in a cage. So it's almost like you're fucking catching Pokemon. Your 2 casters, Keel and Merity, each have a cage. So so it's like so each of them will just start with a few spells. Then like when you get Ifrit, whoever has Ifrit will be able to cast Eruption. Whoever gets Undini will be able to cast Spread, etc., etc. Depending on the combination of Kramels in your cages and like what level each Kramel is, essentially you can do a lot of mixing and matching, and that's how you get your arts. Now, I will be honest, I never looked at a guide to be like, what gives me what? So I know there were really good spells, both like healing spells and attacking spells that I never got. But I know Merity had Meteor Swarm by the end because I made sure to do Maxwell. His fight was ass, by the way. It just wasn't fun. But it was worth it. Meteor Swarm was fucking stupid. And Keel had Indignation, which was really nice. I fucking love Indignation. It's a Trails game. Fuck, I did it again. It's a Tales game. I want to be able to cast Indignation. Arise. Especially as the fact that I played Rinwell like almost the entire game, and one of her main things is casting light spells, and somehow she doesn't fucking get indignation. Like, are you serious, game? Come on! Although I will say, the part where it does show up in the Ganabelt fight is cool as fuck. I'd be remiss if I didn't admit that, but let me cast that, damn it! Anyways, point. What was my point? So yeah, okay, so talking about combat, like, that's just kind of how combat works. I enjoyed it. Getting into bosses, the Maxwell fight, dog shit, fucking hated it. Almost every single other Kramel fight is really good and really fun. The fights against Hyades are a blast. I absolutely, okay, like, talking about the voice acting, this dude is always having the time of his life. Yeah, that's easily a 3.5 now thinking about it. Just his voice acting alone gives it an extra point. It's so fucking funny. But his fights are really good. The final boss, it's 2 phases. It took me 3 attempts to beat it. So the first attempt, all 3 attempts, I got through the first phase, no problem. First time through the second phase, I got it down to, I don't know how much health it had, maybe like 60,000 or so. And then I just kind of got fucked. Like, it's not its insta-kill move, but its other really strong hit. And we survived it, but I was down for too long trying to get up. And then while I was getting up, everyone just kind of got fucked and I wasn't able to recover. I was like, that's just shitty. Essentially, I got a really bad die roll. It happens. The second time was, got it down, it has like 300,000 HP, by the way. It takes a fucking while. Got it down to it about its like 10 to 15,000 range, and it did its insta-kill move because it has one, which at that point is a QTE. I'm spamming the buttons because I'm in the middle of like a combo. So I'm not able to actually use my defensive move, or if I was, I didn't get the timing right and we all fucking died. So that pissed me off. I'm like, okay. I'm gonna give this one more go. So I can beat this thing. Clearly, I'm like right at the end. I just have to do a fucking quick time event. If I don't beat it, I'll try it again tomorrow, or I might say, fuck it. I got to the end of the game. It's a quick time event. It's pissing me off. I'm gonna fucking do this. So when I get the boss down to about like 30,000 HP or so. Oh, put a pin in that for a second. I remembered something else about combat that pissed me off. There's an item called a reverse doll, which is you die, you immediately come back to life. I had one since the beginning of the game, and I'm the kind of person who, when I have an item like that, I'm like, cool, I'm going to never use this until either the final boss or a boss that I just can't deal with. So I'm like, cool, he has an insta-kill. I'm gonna equip that just in fucking case I fail the insta-kill again. And I didn't. I actually got the QTE off and finished it off. I was like, okay. I don't like, on the one hand, there's the part of me that goes, the fact that you can die to a QTE after a boss fight that long pisses me off. And it's not just a hypothetical. It did happen to me. I'm not happy, Bob. Not happy. On the other hand, pulling it off was really cool and really hype. So I can't be that mad because it was kind of worth it. So let me take the pin out. So in every other fucking Tales game I've played, when you scan an enemy with a magic lens, or in this game, a spectacles, you see their health, you see like what elements they're strong against, what elements they're weak against, you have an idea, okay? Then, anytime because you can also like lock on to different enemies, so whenever you lock on to that enemy after that, that information is still there, or at the very least, you can still see their health. Not in Eternia. If you want to see their health again, you have to use another magic lens. That's dumb. I actively hate that. Why? Just like, is it a minor thing overall? 1000% it's a minor thing. But I'm a very anal person. I'm someone who loves numbers. Like, I want to know, what are your numbers? What are my numbers? Because that's an important part of my strategy. As much as I love D&D and Pathfinder, and I do, I wish I knew boss HP and enemy HP. I was like, yeah, but that's metagaming. You're not supposed to know that. I'm like, yes, but I'm actively playing a game. I want to know those kinds of things. Now, with some things, it's like, all right, you don't get to know the boss's like spell DC and their stats. That's fine. I don't mind not knowing that. I just want to know their HP. I want to know. It's like, how are they looking? Oh, you know, he's not looking too good. So like, okay, I know he's like kind of close, but I just like numbers. I love numbers and data and shit. Give me that. So I love checking boss HP when I'm playing a Tales game. And so like, I was playing Abyss the other day, and I'm doing this fight where I don't remember what her name was, but it's I almost said the member of the Gung-Ho Guns, but that's Trigon. But she's the one character with the Oracle Knights. That's what it is. She's the member of the Oracle Knights with the guns. And I'm doing this fight, and it's Abyss, so I'm fucking poor, and which means I can't buy items. Which, that's not a problem in Eternia. Eternia gives you so much money. It's wonderful. But it's like, we don't have a lot of recovery items, so I get to a point where the entire party is dead except me, and I'm playing Natalia, by the way, because I actually think Natalia is really fun. So I'm playing Natalia, and it's just the two of us left. I really don't have a lot of recovery items anymore, but she's getting pretty low, and it just becomes this duel, and as we're dueling, like, I just keep checking her health, like, how close am I? How close am I? Because I know the closer I am, the more aggressive I'm able to play. And then when I actually won that duel, I was like, this is so satisfying. That was badass. That was really fun. Glad I don't have to use a magic lens every time I'm trying to check her health. Eternia. But generally speaking, Eternia combat is really, really good. Dungeon design varies. Belir Castle is long, but it's pretty fun. The final dungeon, which is the Chazelle Castle, I don't even think it was as long. It was fun, and then when you get into like the specific puzzle rooms, like the Earth Room, the Lightning Room and shit, once I figured out what I needed to do, they're not too bad. Like the Celsius one and the Ifrit one, those are really fun. And then you get, like, Sylphs, which is ass, and I hated it. And then you have Gnomes, which is, hey, so you need items to progress through the dungeon. Cool. You can only take one at a time with you, though. Oh. So, like, you get a thing, and then you go to a spot where you're like, cool, now I need the other thing. So I gotta backtrack all the way back, then switch, go all the way back there, progress, take a few steps, realize I now need to go back and get the third thing, because you can only grab one thing at a time. Like, this is just backtracking, and I hate it. This is awful. Don't do this to me. I think there was, like, another dungeon or two that I played that I was like, this one is just not fun. This is annoying. Here's a perfect example of the dungeon design being good and bad at the same time. Chat's Hut. So it's 8 floors, and in every floor, what you are trying to do is you're trying to find a rubber duck and, I am blanking on the term, but like a fucking spinner. Oh man, my brain is blinking so hard on what this thing should be called. But like, you know, like a wind-up. Thank you. It's like essentially you're getting a toy duck and then the wind-up, and then you're putting it in the thing so it goes and hitting a switch. The fact that you were it's a really goofy idea, but it's funny and it's kind of charming. I enjoyed it. But for 8 floors? It kind of wore out its welcome. Like, if it was 3 to 4, I think it would have been perfect. It goes on a little too long. There's another one where you're essentially playing a board game, like this dice board game. And it's, again, a really fun, charming idea. But after a while, it starts getting a little annoying. And I feel like that's kind of, like, the dungeons are either really fun, really annoying, or somewhere in the middle. So combat's great, dungeons are kind of mixed. Then there's the traversal. Generally speaking, I think the traversal is fine. The game is really good about saying, this is where you need to go. It's in this direction. You can go find it, and there's not a problem. What I don't like is mostly in, like, disc... Like, I guess I would say it like this. Disc 1 traversal is fucking perfect. Disc 2, now that you, like, once you get the Von Eltia and you're on the ship, the world opens a lot more, which in JRPG terms means the game can now get a bit more vague about where you need to go. And at times they can be like, yo, this is where you need to go, and it's pretty easy to figure out, but it takes a long while to get there. And I just wish this had fast travel, because I like fast travel. I like knowing that when I've been to a place, I can snap my fingers and just get there. Because I don't want to have to go all the way the fuck across the map to get to where I'm going, when I've already been there. Also, Tales maps are dog shit. I hope I said that in Symphonia. I'm going to probably say it in every fucking Tales game I play. In Pokemon, when you get the town map, it's, here you go. Here's all the fucking cities. Here's the routes. So you know where you... And here you are on the map. So you know where you need to go. Simple shit. You always know where the other towns and cities are. What a Tales map does is, number one, instead of putting like a dot on the map of where something is, they'll show its coordinates, which is just, for my brain, a lot harder for me to read. I just don't like that. It's like, no, just like put a fucking star there. So, like, my brain has a better time of figuring out where that is. I need to go to the star, not to this part where these two lines are intersecting. Also, it only does that for places that you've been. So, for example, playing Abyss, they're like, okay, we need to go east to the town of Belkand. Cool. I don't know where the fuck that is. Aside from that, it's east. Let me check the map. Like, because, you know, if it even does, like, the intersecting lines, I can at least kind of take a look and go, okay, so then it's somewhere here-ish. So I can go there and figure that out. Oh, Belkand isn't on the fucking map I have. So I can't even do that. Like, if it's like, as soon as someone is, like, as soon as tongue-tied. As soon as a location is discussed as, this is where we need to go, someone should kind of point it out on the map then, and not just the direction. Be like, cool, this is it. So now it appears on your map, you know where to go. And it bothers me that it doesn't do that. And then when you find these places, you can't just fast travel back to them. You gotta swim your ass on the ship, or the, like, Riards if you're playing Symphonia. And at least Symphonia on the mini-map will have dots, so I can at least kind of tell this is where I'm supposed to go. Eternia does that too. I guess I'll almost say it like this. Let me rephrase it. Tales mini-maps are good. Their big maps are dog shit. Now let me see if I have anything else to really say about gameplay. I think I kind of hit everything. Oh yeah, the Rassius fight. That's another one that's pretty good. Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. So, combat as a whole, or excuse me, gameplay as a whole, I do think I don't know if I would say it is its strongest strength, because I do have some good things to say about the narrative as well. I feel like gameplay, it's like a 3.5 to a 4. Again, I wish there was fast travel, or that the map, like the main map, was a little bit better. I would be a lot more comfortable giving it a 4 if it had one of those. But even then, like, the worst part is some of the dungeons are kind of ass, and they're not that bad, and combat's really fun. I think a 4 is fair, so we'll say going into narrative, 7.5 overall. I'm going to take another quick break. Okay, so back to this, talking about the narrative of Eternia. I like the cozy feeling that the first third of the game has. Now, there's still some stakes. You know the thing in Majora's Mask? It's like, hey, the moon is slowly getting closer, and if it hits, we're all going to die. That's what the plot is. There is the grand fall, where there's these two worlds, and it's like, hey, is that one getting closer? That's a problem. And so the plot of the game is like, yeah, we're going to do what we can to stop that. We're going to get the power of the greater Kramals, who are, in a lot of other games, they are the summon spirits. So we're going to get them. And partway through, we're going to go to the other world. When we go there, we're going to learn what we can about this. How do we stop it? We're going to get their summon spirits. So very Symphonia-esque. Use that power to stop shit. And that goal never changes. Which, it's a lot like Berseria in that regard. Where, like, what is the goal at the start of Berseria? Kill Arthur. What is the goal at the end of Berseria? Kill Arthur. There's a lot of other shit that happens, but that stays the same. And I like that. Eternia is very similar. They are trying to stop the Grand Fall. There's some shit. You find out that the guy running Celestia, the other country, Belir, has been dead for years. You find out that it is the person behind all of this is his wife, Giselle. Excuse me, who is the mother of Merity, one of the party members who's like, we need to stop this shit. You find out that that one guy who joined your party for a small amount of time, Rassius, is actually like one of the great knights of the kingdom, which the first time I met him, I was like, is he that Lewin guy that was mentioned earlier? Oh, I guess he's not. And then, oh, never mind. I guess he fucking is. When you actually meet the Inferior royal family, you realize they're all, not all, but like the king is kind of a dickhead. And he's not like, hey, there's a problem, we gotta stop it. He's like, you're all traitors and treacherous with all of your seditious slander and lies. To the dungeon and be executed. Like, oh, well, fuck this guy too. You get Celestia, things are super cool. And then Merity's home gets burned to the ground. You're like, this is wonderful. What all this shit's going on? There's a lot of shit that happens, and it does have an impact on the characters. You have a main party of 4. There's a couple other characters you get, and they're kind of in and out of the party. You have Reed, Farah, Merity, and Keel. All of them but Merity grew up together in the same village. They are childhood friends, although Keel moved away to become a scholar. He moved away to go to college. And then they're like, hey, who could help with this? Keel. And then when they see him again, Keel's just kind of like, oh, not you. Fine. I have been noticing something weird about, like, the distance between the planets and the worlds. If I stop this, they might let me back into school. He's kind of a piece of shit in his own way. I like Keel a lot. But I guess getting into your characters, Reed is the protagonist, and he just doesn't want to be here. Like, I just want to go home. I want to sleep in my own bed. I want to have a big fucking meal. He kind of has no empathy for anybody, which it's not to the point of becoming unlikable. In a way, it's kind of refreshing to see a main character who's just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm here because I'm kind of getting shanghaied into it, but it is what it is. As the game goes on, though, he has to undergo these trials, the Seifert trial. Seifert is God. And he's undergoing God's trials to get this strong power that can possibly defeat the main antagonist, who you end up finding out is, for all intents and purposes, is Satan, because poor Giselle is getting possessed by Satan. Who would have thunk? The Seifert trials, I don't think this is a hot take. Narratively speaking, they're the best part of the game. There's 3 of them. One is you play as a monster. It is a bear. It is an egg bear. And it's like, it feels terrified. It's, doesn't know what the fuck is going on. It's wandering around a cave. And it ends in a hopeless boss fight against Reed and Keel. Because earlier in the game, you killed that egg bear. Because Reed is a hunter. He's eating for food. But it kind of also makes it seem like he does kind of hunt for sport. And he's also kind of like showing off a bit. He's like, come on, Keel, stop being such a bitch. We can fight this thing. Like, let's do this for the girls. And I'm like, I know why I killed it. And I can justify it. But I am kind of a piece of shit about this. And then the next trial is he's in Chazelle's body. Like when she lost her husband. Essentially when this woman's life all completely went to shit. And things that Meredy had to watch happen to her parents. Which, does get... And it's not like at that point he like fucking hated Meredy or anything like that. They're cool by that point for sure. But it's not that it gives him a better sense of empathy for his friend. It gives him empathy for his enemy. And he can understand why she was, like, able to get possessed. And why she kind of is doing the shit she's doing. And the last one is he's in Keel's body. Years ago, when Farah was like, hey guys, let's play a game. My dad is the head of the village. And there's this place we're not supposed to go, but I've got the key. And I'm going to issue a challenge. Both of you go into that, like, special sealed-off cave and get me a star fragment. That sounds fucking cool. And Reed's like, bet, I'm going. Come on, Keel, you little bitch. And Keel's like, but we're not supposed to go, and I don't really want to. I said, come on, you little bitch. And so Keel's just getting shanghaied and bullied the entire time. And by the end of it, a seal accidentally comes undone, a monster ends up possessing Farah's dad, and it, like, destroys the entire village, and her dad dies, and a lot of other people died. Which is why at the start of the game, the people in the village don't seem to like Reed and Farah very much, and when they're like, we're gonna leave and go on, like, a big world-changing adventure, they're like, bye, Felicia. Like, don't let the fucking door hit you on the way out. Like, oh, that's why. And it's Reed getting more empathy toward Keel. Also just kind of like really remembering the shit that happened. And it's really interesting. Like, I fucking love this shit. Keel, I was saving Farah for last, by the way. Keel is the guy, he's the scholar. He is the one he's not like super, I am robotic and has no emotion. But he's more, tries to be more logical than he is emotional. Although he can be very emotional because he gets like pretty prone to getting frustrated really quickly. But the fact that he was essentially bullied by his best friends for most of his life, you kind of get why he is the way he is. Meredy is a sweetheart. Her catchphrase is, you bet. And it's just really endearing. I just like it a lot. She reminds me a lot of Garnet from Final Fantasy IX. And you've heard me talk about Final Fantasy IX. I'm very mixed on it, but I fucking love Garnet. I love the princess who knows that there is shit going on. Like, I need to stop whatever bad shit is happening or on the way. And I know I can't do it by myself, but I am going to find people who can help. That is my duty. And that's what I really get from Meredy, in addition to just being a nice person. Farah? I feel like I can't say if she is my favorite character. I don't know if I would say she is the most interesting character, because like the shit you get with Meredy later when you find out about her parents is really interesting. Reed going through the trials is really interesting. But the scene that's like kind of lived in my head rent free. Wow, that was fucking weird. In my head rent free. Is very, very early on in the game. Whenever it's like Meredy shows up, they can't understand her at this point. And she's just trying to be like, I'm here to save the world and help and shit. Barely communicating it. Farah's like, cool, we're going to drop everything and help you because that's a fucking problem. Come on, Reed. Farah, what are you talking about? Like, we don't know this person. We don't have any reason to trust this person. Why do we have to go? I said, let's go, Reed. We're going to go save the world. I'm going without you. Come on. She's gung-ho to the point of it being kind of weird. And later, there's a scene where she's talking to Raz. He's like, why are you like that? Why do you like to help people so much? I don't quite get it. And I don't remember exactly what she says. It's something along the lines of, well, I mean, I just want to be able to help. You know, it's a good thing to help people. You know, it's just a good mindset. And the moment that lived in my head rent-free, I think I fucked up the letters again, is Raz essentially saying, wow. For you to think like this, like for you to be the way you are, you must have suffered and have some deep fucking wounds that still haven't recovered. Vera's like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. I've always been fine. This is just how I am. Uh-huh. Sure. That's what you want to say? I won't pry, but I don't buy it. I trust you as far as I can throw you. So when you get to the end of the game and you get to that last Seifert trial about what happened, and then Farah talking to Reed, and she's like, yeah, because I think Reed and Keo are like, yeah, I mean, like, well, none of us knew there was actually a seal. Like, we knew we weren't supposed to go there. We didn't know why. So as the shit that happened, that's our fault. But we didn't know about it. So, I mean, we're not as culpable. And Farah's like, actually, I did. I knew what was in there. I knew why we weren't supposed to go. And I sent you guys in there anyway because I just wanted a pretty fucking rock. So many people, including my own father, died because of my selfishness. And I've never forgiven myself for that. I've never gotten over that. Excuse me. That's why I am the way I am. I really like that. Like, I liked when we finally got to that and getting the context for it. My biggest problem with the game's narrative, honestly, deadass, is the lack of skits. Because from what I understand, there was no translated version of Eternia that keeps the skits. And I feel like it would make me love the game a lot more. It's one of my favorite elements of a Tales game. It's just these conversations that make the characters feel more like people. It can flesh out their characterization. It can flesh out maybe extra parts of their backstory. Like, if I just played Symphonia without the skits, I would still love the story. I would still love the cast. But it's these extra moments of, like, them ruminating on things. And sometimes it's just whatever inane bullshit they feel like talking about. Like, oh gosh, the fucking ones in Vesperia, or not Vesperia, Berseria, where they're talking about the rhino beetle or the stag beetle. Or they're like, hey, are you a cat person or a dog person? I'm like a cat person. You know, I prefer dogs. Hey, what about you, Eisen? Personally, I prefer squirrels. I was howling when I fucking read that. Or they're talking about, you know, oh, we need a secret base. That'd be really cool. Yo, Eisen, you're a pirate. Do you have a secret base, like a hideout? It's every man's fantasy, but no, I don't have one. Eisen's ability to say funny shit with a straight face is why I love his character so much. I fucking love Berseria, man. Anyways, skits do a lot. Whether it is just goofy shit to endear you to the characters more, or the skits that were like characters will really ruminate on the things they've done, which happened a lot in Symphonia. If that was in Eternia, I feel like the narrative would be a lot better. As is, it's really simple, really basic. Not inherently a bad thing. And I feel like, yeah, there's enough interesting shit by the end to make it not just like, yeah, it is whatever. Like, I'm glad I played it and enjoyed it spoiler-free. But is it really anything to write home about? Not really. It doesn't do anything that's really wrong either. If I'm being honest, I think a 3.5 feels about right. With skits, this would easily be a 4, maybe even a 4.5. So let me just check. Was there any other thing I really wanted to say about the narrative? Nope. that looks about right. So overall, that was, I believe, a 3.5 for presentation and a 3.5 for narrative. So that's a 7. And then I said, I think about like a 3.5 to 4 for the gameplay, I believe. So that would be about, what did I say for gameplay? It's, sorry, like, I know I said, like, I'm going to take a small break. I watched the Little Mermaid remake, made a video on it, went to go see my parents. Like, I did quite a bit in the break. But I think it was also about a 3.5 to a 4. So this is about a 10.5 to 11. And I think that feels about right. This is a game that I enjoyed. It's not a game that really impressed me, though. There are areas, like, again, if I thought the music was, like, way more memorable, if there were skits, it would get a few more points and would probably be something like, this has way more staying power with me. As is, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I played it. I'm glad I have it on my shelf. And it's fine. Oh, but I do have to, you know what? I'm going to give it a 4 for narrative because of my favorite scene in the game. And I talked about some of like the really good emotional shit. There is a part in the game where you're about to go deal with Celsius, the ice grater Kramel, and you're going shopping for winter clothes. And while you're doing that, as you read, you are going to different parts of the store, grabbing clothes and giving them to your party members, and your party members have different reactions to them. Like, you could give Keel a Letterman jacket, and he comes out in the jacket, he's like, hey, look at me, I'm like a sports guy. And then he throws it and Reed like, dude, no, why would you ever fucking think I would wear this? Or you can give one of the options as a gorilla costume, or it's like an ape costume, and you could give it to Farrah, and then she comes out and she's like, why the fuck did you give me a monkey costume, you piece of shit? What do you think of me? I remember reading it and going, I hope there's artwork of Pharaoh just wearing a monkey costume. Like, because of this scene alone, I want to see that. That is fucking funny. I mean, it's kind of like a gameplay thing you're doing, but it's just, the writing of the characters here is so good and so funny. It's like, this is why I want skits, for this level of absurdity. So you know what? I will give it that extra point, so we will say 4 for 8, 3.5, so you know what? An 11.5. It's a little higher than I thought we were gonna go, but I will take it. I will give it. I do like the game, clearly. I would recommend giving it a shot. That's about it.